The morning darkness still clung to Jefferson High School when Theodore Whitfield inserted his worn key into the side entrance at 5:45 a.m. The 71-year-old custodian had performed this ritual for 39 years, arriving before the sun to prepare what he privately called his cathedral. To the world, Theo was just another invisible fixture, a bent black man pushing a mop through empty hallways. But Theodore Whitfield harbored secrets that would one day shake the very foundation of how people saw the world. His arthritic fingers wrapped around the mop handle as he began his daily meditation in motion. Each stroke across the terrazzo floors was deliberate, almost reverent. Theo didn't just clean, he consecrated these spaces where young minds would soon gather to build their futures. The soft squeak of his cart's wheels echoed through the corridors as he hummed spiritually, usually "Wade in the Water" or "Precious Lord," songs his grandmother had taught him while she cleaned houses for pennies in rural Alabama. By 6:30 a.m., he'd already sanitized the science labs, arranged the cafeteria tables in perfect symmetry, and left his signature calling cards throughout the building. These weren't official duties listed in his job description, but Theo had long ago expanded his role beyond what the school board had written on paper. On the broken water fountain near room 203, he'd taped a cheerful yellow note, "Out of order, but you're not. Keep flowing." By the struggled-shut locker 447, another note, "Stubborn today, but so are dreams. Pull harder." Students would discover these messages throughout their day, small beacons of encouragement from a man most barely noticed. The administration tolerated his note-leaving quirk, viewing it as harmless eccentricity from an old man nearing retirement. They didn't understand that for Theo, each note was a prayer, each cleaned surface an act of love for children who weren't his by blood, but had become his by choice. It was a Thursday in October when Destiny Campbell first truly entered Theodore Whitfield's orbit. He'd seen her before, of course. Theo saw everyone, even when they didn't see him. But that morning, something about the 17-year-old made him pause in his sweeping. She burst through the cafeteria doors at 6:47 a.m., juggling a breakfast tray, an overstuffed backpack, and a precarious stack of advanced placement textbooks. Her eyes, bloodshot from lack of sleep, darted anxiously to the wall clock as she claimed her usual corner table, the one Theo always cleaned first because he'd noticed she preferred it. Destiny Campbell was a study in contradictions. Her clothing told a story of economic struggle. A faded Jefferson High hoodie with a carefully mended tear, jeans worn soft from countless washes, sneakers held together with silver duct tape that she'd tried to make look intentional. But her posture spoke of unshakable dignity, her movements efficient and purposeful despite exhaustion. She arranged her study materials with the precision of a surgeon, creating order from chaos on the scratched cafeteria table. Theo observed her routine over the following weeks with growing concern. She'd inhale the free breakfast while simultaneously reviewing calculus problems, her left hand spooning oatmeal while her right hand scribbled equations. Always alone, always racing against time, always carrying the weight of expectations heavier than her overloaded backpack. He began timing his cafeteria cleaning to coincide with her study sessions, working quietly nearby while she absorbed knowledge like a sponge desperate for water. Sometimes she'd glance up, offer a tired smile, and return to her books. Once, when her pencil rolled off the table, he retrieved it, and she'd whispered, "Thank you, Mr. Whitfield," with such genuine warmth that it caught him off guard. Most students didn't know his name. "You studying mighty hard," he ventured one morning, breaking their usual silence. Destiny looked up, rubbing her eyes. "Columbia University doesn't care that I'm tired," she said with a rueful smile. "Pre-med track. Full scholarship if I can maintain my GPA and scores. Columbia, Theo repeated softly, recognizing the dream in her voice. That's something special. If I can afford the parts they don't cover, she added quietly, then seemed to catch herself. Sorry, I didn't mean to. Dreams don't apologize, Theo interrupted gently. You keep studying. I'll keep these floors clean for you to walk on. It became their morning ritual, her studying, him cleaning nearby, occasional exchanges that grew from polite greetings to something warmer. Theo learned that her mother, Vanessa, worked 3 jobs: overnight shifts at the hospital laundry, afternoons at a daycare, weekends cashiering at Dollar General. Her father had died in Afghanistan when Destiny was 12, leaving behind a folded flag, a small life insurance policy long since spent, and a daughter determined to become the doctor who might have saved him. The crisis came in February. Theo was sanitizing doorknobs. Flu season demanded extra vigilance when he heard muffled sobs from the guidance counselor's office. Ms. Patterson's door was ajar, and Destiny's voice carried into the hallway. My mom's insulin costs went up again, she was saying, voice thick with tears. I've been working 25 hours a week at the grocery store, but they cut everyone's hours after Christmas. I'm $800 short for Columbia's enrollment deposit. If I don't pay by March 1st, I lose my spot. Have you applied for emergency aid? Ms. Patterson asked gently. I've applied for everything. Work-study, private scholarships, even a GoFundMe that raised $127. A bitter laugh. Turns out most people don't want to donate to another kid asking for college money. They don't understand that this isn't just college. It's my whole family's future. If I become a doctor, my mom won't have to choose between insulin and electricity anymore. Theo stood frozen in the hallway, his weathered hands gripping the doorknob he'd been cleaning. $800. To some, it was a car payment. To Destiny Campbell, it was the difference between transformation and stagnation. That night, Theodore Whitfield sat at his kitchen table, a wobbly relic he'd rescued from the school's dumpster years ago, and performed calculations that would alter multiple lives. His bank statement showed $11,000 in savings, accumulated over decades of frugal living. His monthly expenses, already stripped to essentials, totaled $1,400. Social Security and his custodial salary brought in $2,100. He pulled out a yellow legal pad and began writing. Cancel cable. Saved $45 a month. Cancel cell phone. Use school landline for emergencies. Saved $40 a month. Rice and beans instead of chicken. Saved $60 a month. Walk to work instead of bus pass. Saved $55 a month. Cancel Netflix. Read library books. Saved $15 month. The numbers added up to an extra $215 monthly. Not enough. Not nearly enough for what was forming in his mind. Not just the enrollment deposit, but ongoing support through Destiny's undergraduate years. Theo stared at a faded photograph on his refrigerator, him and his wife Loretta, on their 40th anniversary, 2 years before cancer took her. They'd never had children, despite years of trying and praying. Loretta had channeled her maternal love into teaching Sunday school, mentoring young mothers, crocheting baby blankets for the church nursery. Our children are everywhere, she used to say. We just have to recognize them. Lord, Theo whispered to the empty kitchen, if this is my child, show me the way. The next morning, he took a second application from the grocery store on Maple Street. The night shift paid $2 more per hour than his request, 4 p.m. to midnight, Monday through Friday. His body, already tired from 4 decades of physical labor, protested at the thought. But Destiny Campbell's tear-stained voice echoed in his memory. They hired him immediately. Good help was hard to find for overnight stocking, especially someone who showed up religiously and worked without complaint. Theo began a punishing schedule: custodial work from 5:45 a.m. to 2:30 p.m., a brief nap at home, then stocking shelves from 4 p.m. to midnight. Weekends meant extra shifts when available. His first paycheck from the double shifts went straight to a money order made out to Columbia University, with Destiny Campbell's student ID number carefully printed in the memo line. He mailed it anonymously with only a typed note. For a young woman who studies while others sleep, education is the only inheritance that can't be stolen. The transformation in Destiny was immediate and profound. She arrived at school the Monday after Columbia confirmed receipt of her deposit, practically glowing. Ms. Patterson called it a miracle. Destiny called it an answered prayer. She threw herself into her studies with renewed vigor, no longer carrying the weight of impending disappointment. Theo watched from afar, exhausted but exhilarated. He'd discovered something that made the aching joints and sleep deprivation bearable: purpose beyond himself. Every swept floor was a step toward Destiny's future. Every cleaned window was a clearer view of her possibilities. But $800 was just the beginning. Room and board at Columbia ran $15,000 annually. Books and supplies added another $3,000. Health insurance, lab fees, transportation. The numbers grew like a mountain. Theo refined his budget again, cutting deeper. Sold his television, one-time gain, $200. Eliminated breakfast and lunch, eating only dinner. Patched clothes instead of replacing them. Canceled his supplemental health insurance. Moved from his one-bedroom apartment to a studio in a rougher neighborhood. Saved $200 a month. He opened a separate savings account at a different bank, labeled simply Future Fund. Every penny beyond bare survival went into it. When co-workers commented on his weight loss, he claimed it was doctor's orders. When they noticed him limping more, he blamed old age. No one suspected that Jefferson High's janitor was systematically sacrificing his present for a student's future. The anonymous gifts continued throughout Destiny's senior year. When her laptop died in April, a refurbished one appeared in her locker with a note. Every doctor needs proper tools. When Columbia's orientation fees came due, they were mysteriously paid within hours of posting. When she mentioned to Ms. Patterson that she couldn't afford appropriate interview clothes for her pre-med program interview, a gift card to Target appeared in her mailbox. Destiny became obsessed with her benefactor's identity. She analyzed the typed notes for clues, questioned family members, even asked local churches if they had education assistance programs. The mystery consumed her, but also inspired her. Someone believed in her potential enough to invest real money. She couldn't waste their faith. Meanwhile, Theo's health deteriorated under the strain. A persistent cough developed from the cold walks to work. His vision blurred from fatigue. His hands, always steady with a mop, began trembling during his evening shifts. He ignored it all, focused solely on the growing balance in the Future Fund account. Graduation day arrived with the kind of perfect weather that made everything seem possible. Theo had volunteered to arrive at 4 a.m. to prepare the auditorium, partly from dedication but mostly because he could no longer sleep past 3:30 anyway. He polished every surface until it gleamed, arranged every chair with military precision. This wasn't just another ceremony, this was Destiny's coronation. He positioned himself in the back corner during the ceremony, partially hidden behind a pillar. When Destiny's name was called, valedictorian Destiny Vanessa Campbell, attending Columbia University, he gripped his mop handle to keep from crying out in joy. She walked across that stage like royalty, her patched sneakers hidden beneath her graduation gown, her smile bright enough to power the building. Her valedictorian speech broke from tradition. Instead of platitudes about the future, she spoke about angels. "We think angels have wings and halos," she said, her voice strong and clear. "But I've learned they sometimes have tired eyes and calloused hands. They work in shadows and speak in actions rather than words. I stand here today because an angel I've never met decided I was worth believing in. They didn't just give money. They gave me permission to dream without limits." She paused, scanning the audience. "I don't know if my angel is here today, but I want them to know. Your investment is safe. I will become the doctor you saw in me before I saw it in myself. And one day, I'll be someone else's angel, paying forward what can never be paid back." Theo ducked his head, tears streaming into his gray beard. Several people noticed the old janitor crying and assumed he was simply emotional about the students graduating. They had no idea they were witnessing a father's pride in a daughter who didn't know his name. After the ceremony, as families clustered for photos and tearful goodbyes, Theo began his familiar ritual of cleaning up. He was sweeping near the stage when Destiny approached, still in her cap and gown. "Mr. Whitfield," she said warmly, "thank you for everything this year, for the morning conversations, for making sure the cafeteria was always open early, for those funny notes you leave around school." He paused in his sweeping, managing his usual gentle smile despite his exhaustion. "Just doing my job, Miss Destiny, keeping things ready for special people like you." She tilted her head, studying him with the analytical gaze that would one day diagnose illnesses. "You know, it's funny. My guardian angel always seemed to know exactly what I needed, exactly when I needed it, like they were watching me closely, maybe even every morning." Theo's hands tightened on the mop handle, but he kept his expression neutral. "Angels work in mysterious ways, I suppose." "They do," she agreed softly, "especially angels who leave encouraging notes in the same handwriting." Their eyes met, hers knowing, his panicked. Before he could respond, she stepped forward and embraced him gently, mindful of his age and apparent fragility. "I won't say anything," she whispered, "but I need you to know that you saved my life. Not just my education, my life, my mother's life, our entire future." Theo patted her back with one trembling hand, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. She pulled back, eyes glistening. "I'll make you proud. I promise." "You already have," he managed to whisper. As she walked away to join her celebrating family, Theo resumed sweeping, each stroke a prayer of gratitude for being allowed to participate in her miracle. The story might have ended there, a secret kept, a dream enabled, a janitor returning to his mops while his unofficial daughter headed to Manhattan. But Jefferson High's assistant principal, Mrs. Chen, had noticed things others missed. Theo's weight loss, his exhaustion, the way he sometimes paused to catch his breath while pushing his cart. She'd also noticed the correlation between Destiny's mysterious windfalls and Theo's increasingly gaunt appearance. 2 weeks after graduation, she called him into her office. "Theo, I know what you've been doing." He sat straighter in the chair, prepared to deny everything. Destiny's future was secure now. Protecting her benefactor's identity was paramount. "I know about the double shifts, the anonymous gifts, the sacrifices." She leaned forward, eyes compassionate. "Maintenance found your pay stubs in the trash. We can add, Theo, your night job plus what you make here, minus basic living expenses. It matches Destiny's mysterious donations almost exactly. Theo's shoulders sagged. Please, Mrs. Chen, she doesn't need to know. It would burden her. She already knows. She figured it out months ago, but didn't want to embarrass you. Mrs. Chen smiled softly. That young woman has been volunteering at the food bank every Saturday, packing extra boxes that somehow always ended up at your apartment building. The neighbors you thought were being kind, she organized them. Theo stared at his weathered hands, overwhelmed. The hunter had been hunted. The giver had been receiving. The angel had been watched over by the very soul he guarded. What happens now? He asked quietly. What happened next exceeded Theodore Whitfield's wildest prayers. Mrs. Chen shared the story, with his reluctant permission, at the next school board meeting. Within hours, it had spread through social media. Janitor secretly funds students' Ivy League dream became the headline that launched 1,000 tissues. The response was immediate and overwhelming. A GoFundMe titled Support the Angel of Jefferson High raised $75,000 in its first week. Theo tried to refuse it, insisting the money go to other students, but Destiny, now preparing for Columbia, intervened. Mr. Theo, she said, visiting him at his tiny studio apartment with a group of recent graduates, you taught us that giving is sacred, but so is receiving. Let us love you back. They'd organized everything. Free health care through a local clinic whose director had been moved by the story. Grocery deliveries from the store where he'd stocked shelves. Your family, the manager said simply. A better apartment in senior housing, with heat that worked and windows that sealed. Non-negotiable, Destiny insisted. The school district, embarrassed that a custodian had lived in poverty while transforming lives, immediately reviewed compensation structures. The Whitfield Wage Initiative ensured no support staff would earn below a living wage. The union president, presenting the resolution, said, Theodore Whitfield reminded us that the foundation of education isn't in the classrooms. It's in every person who makes those classrooms possible. But Theo's greatest joy came from the Theodore and Loretta Whitfield Scholarship Fund, established with the overflow donations. The criteria were simple: students who demonstrated determination despite circumstances, who showed kindness without recognition, who worked while others slept to build better tomorrows. Destiny thrived at Columbia, her education fully funded through a combination of aid and the anonymous donor network Theo's story had inspired. She returned to Jefferson High every break, not just to visit, but to mentor students who reminded her of herself. Together, she and Theo would walk the halls, she in her Columbia sweatshirt, he with his mop, both understanding that sacred spaces were created not by architecture, but by love. The learning nook created from the renovated janitor's closet became a pilgrimage site for struggling students. Theo's photo hung on the wall beside his favorite quote, "Greatness often wears work clothes." Below it, a guest book filled with entries from students he'd never met, but who'd heard his story. Because of you, I didn't give up. Your notes got me through senior year. You showed me that heroes push mops. Years passed. Destiny progressed from pre-med to medical school, each milestone shared with the man she now openly called her school grandfather. Theo's health, stabilized by proper care and reduced stress, allowed him to enjoy what he'd sacrificed to create. He attended her white coat ceremony, sitting in the front row at her insistence, tears streaming as she took her oath to do no harm and help without prejudice. You taught me that, she told him afterward. Every patient I treat will be treated with the dignity you showed me when I was just a tired kid studying in your cafeteria. The Whitfield scholarships multiplied, funding dreams across the district. Each recipient received a letter with their award, signed by Theo himself. From someone who believes in you, because someone once believed in me. Pay it forward. Theodore Whitfield passed peacefully at 79, 8 years after Destiny's high school graduation. He died in his sleep, his Bible bookmarked at Proverbs 11:25. The generous will prosper. Those who refresh others will themselves be refreshed. His modest apartment held few possessions, but countless letters from scholarship recipients, photos from graduations he'd made possible, and medical journals with articles by Dr. Destiny Campbell circled in proud red ink. His funeral filled Jefferson High's auditorium, the gymnasium, and the parking lot. Current students stood beside elderly graduates. Janitors sat with judges. The governor attended, having declared it Theodore Whitfield Day statewide. But the most moving tribute came from Destiny, now completing her residency in pediatric surgery. They called him a janitor, she said, voice strong despite her tears. But job titles don't capture soul purposes. Theo Whitfield was a dream keeper, a hope guardian, a future builder who worked with mops instead of blueprints. He taught me that the most profound love often speaks in silence, serves without recognition, and transforms lives from the shadows. She looked out at the diverse crowd, seeing other Theos among them. The lunch ladies, bus drivers, security guards, all the invisible people who made visible differences. He used to say he was just keeping the floors clean for us to walk on, but he was really building bridges to futures we couldn't yet imagine. Every time I save a life in surgery, I'm using hands he helped steady. Every diagnosis I make comes from eyes he helped open. Every child I heal is a grandchild he never met, but always loved. Today, Jefferson High's main entrance features a bronze statue, not of a generic figure, but specifically of Theodore Whitfield. He's depicted mid-sweep, but looking up with a gentle smile, one hand extended as if offering help. The inscription reads, Theodore Whitfield, custodian of dreams. He cleaned our halls and cleared our paths. May we all see the sacred in the simple and remember that angels often carry mops. The Whitfield Scholarship Fund has sent over 200 students to college. Each graduation season, they gather for the Whitfield Walk, a ceremonial procession through Jefferson High's halls at 5:45 a.m., the time Theo arrived each morning. They carry mops and brooms, not in mockery but in homage, understanding that every surface cleaned with love becomes holy ground. Dr. Destiny Campbell Williams, she married a fellow physician who understood why she hyphenated to keep her maiden name, serves as the fund's president. Her office features 2 photos, her medical school graduation and a grainy security camera image of an old janitor leaving encouraging notes by broken water fountains. When patients ask about them, she tells Theo's story, often through tears. He showed me that love doesn't require blood relation, she explains, that fathers can choose their daughters in hallways rather than delivery rooms, that the most powerful force in education isn't curriculum or technology. It's someone believing you're worth their sacrifice. The Theodore and Loretta Whitfield Medical Center, built with donations from thousands touched by their story, serves the community where Theo once walked to save bus fare. Its mission statement, displayed in bronze letters across the entrance, captures his philosophy. Healthcare with the dignity of a grandfather's love, the persistence of a janitor's dedication, and the faith that every person matters. Medical students rotate through the center, required to spend 1 week shadowing not doctors but custodial staff. If you can't see the sacred in their work, Destiny tells each new class, You're not ready to hold a scalpel. Healing happens at every level, and the person mopping up after your mistakes might be the one enabling someone else's miracle. The ripples continue expanding. Other schools have created their own Whitfield recognition programs, celebrating support staff who go beyond duty to touch lives. The National Custodial Workers Union established the Whitfield Award for Excellence in Service. Publishers released a children's book, The Angel with a Mop, teaching young readers that heroes come in all uniforms. But perhaps Theo's greatest legacy lives in the daily choices of those he inspired. In every scholarship recipient who mentors others, in every successful professional who remembers to thank the cleaning crew, in every person who looks past job titles to see human potential, in every act of quiet sacrifice that enables another's dreams. Because Theodore Whitfield knew what we all need to remember, that the distance between a mop and a miracle is measured not in feet, but in faith. That the smallest acts of love create the largest circles of impact. That sometimes the person cleaning up your present is actually constructing your future. His story stands as proof that angels don't always descend from heaven. Sometimes they rise at 5 a.m., put on work clothes, and push mops through empty hallways. Sometimes they sacrifice their comfort for another's possibility. Sometimes they love so quietly that their heartbeat becomes someone else's hope. And in a world that often confuses wealth with worth, Theodore Whitfield's life reminds us that the richest among us might be wearing custodial uniforms, their wealth measured not in bank balances, but in dreams delivered, futures funded, and lives forever changed by the sacred work of seeing potential where others see problems. The mop leans retired in the Whitfield Learning Nook, but its work continues in every hand that reaches out to lift another. Because Theodore Whitfield didn't just clean Jefferson High School, he revealed that every space where someone dares to dream is already a cathedral. We just need eyes willing to see the sacred in the service, and hearts brave enough to believe that one person, armed with nothing but love and a mop, really can change the world. One floor at a time, one student at a time, one sacrifice at a time. Forever and always, in the name of love that sees tomorrow in today's struggles, and says quietly, persistently, with every sweep of the mop, "You matter. Your dreams matter. And I'll keep these floors clean for you to walk toward your destiny."